Hi, I'm Sam and welcome to my channel. It's afternoon, it's about 4 o'clock and I've just woken up from a nap, which is rare for me. That shows how relaxed I am, the fact that I can have an afternoon nap. Mind you, a couple of glasses of wine at lunch helps. But seriously, that is a sign of how relaxed I am, that I can actually have a nap. And I woke up and instantly thought, I know I'll make a video when my mind is clear and I haven't woken up completely, and started to try and grasp for narratives and things that I want to say. I'll just turn the camera on and start talking and just say something. I do know that I have a poem that I want to read from this book and some thoughts to share. Just have a sip of tea. So it's been a very fascinating week. It is fascinating being a human being. I find that to be true. And it's getting more fascinating the more attention that I can spare. It's an interesting thing to be human. So I did plan on taking a break until after my surgery, but I found out last week that there is going to be a delay, which was extremely distressing when I found that out. But I'll talk about that in a minute. So this video is going to be a detransition update, a life update, and some new thoughts to share on what's been happening over the last week or so. But first I do want to say something about language. If you watched the last few videos, you would have heard me say that I have felt imprisoned by the language I've been using, the names I've given myself, the descriptions I've used, and I have been reluctant to keep using that same language, but people email me and reach out to me to talk, and people comment under the videos, and they wouldn't have found their way there if I hadn't titled the videos as I had. So if I try and avoid using certain language, people don't know what the videos are about, and I get the videos where I try and just give a title without talking about recovery from trauma, healing, detransition. If I try and avoid that, then nobody really watches the videos, so the videos get a fraction of the views. And the purpose of this channel, the purpose of me doing this, is to reach other people, to help other people. So I just think I need to accept the fact that I need to actually contain a little bit more of a clue what the video is about in the title. And it is about being human, and the human journey is universal. We all feel pain, we all grow and change and go through multiple transitions in our lifetimes. Some people experience more malevolence and intensity of in the pain that they feel, but we all feel pain. And I think we all deal with delusion and the fact that we hide from ourselves, and we hide from a world that is strange and chaotic and unknowable, and we try and create certainty and stability. So that is the basis of all of the videos. But essentially I am recovering from a lifetime of trauma, repetitive trauma, initially trauma that was out of my control, but then trauma I perpetrated against myself as I became my own abuser. So I need to give a clue in the titles, I think. So I need to get over my own reluctance. So I'm flip-flopping again on the the issue around language. So I have to also I am comfortable with the fact that change happens when it's ready, and largely we are passenger to that process. And so I'm not talked out just yet on those subjects. So that said, sip of tea. I shall get into this video. So, detransition update. Oh, what a strange process this is. Oh dear. What I did to myself all those years ago. What did I do to myself, and what now must I live with? It is very, very strange to find yourself waking up into clarity with these irreversible decisions, and trying my very best to be present with everything I've done. It's very strange. So, last week I had my surgical consultation, and which was an odd experience in itself, because I had to go to a city, and I live in the wilds of Scotland, and I have done for 15 years in various beautiful locations, and to go to a city is an abstract experience in itself. It always strikes me as being very strange, because people are wearing things that are impractical, whether that's strange footwear or impractical clothing that seems more decorative than purposeful. It's very odd. So, I feel like a fish out of water when I'm in a city. So, I went and had my surgical consultation, and the surgeon was lovely, as I knew he would be, because I've spoken to him twice already. Very compassionate, very sensitive to my situation, and very keen to help. But he did say that the codes of practice they're now using are different. So it's not such a strict criteria anymore. I think to accommodate people like me, and people who don't want to change from one, I know this language is problematic, but it's all I have to use. So they're not transitioning from male to female or female to male. There are people that are, for want of a better description, non-binary. So, it's just an ongoing mess, basically. But I think they're also accommodating people like me who are changing back but can't go all the way. So my case needs to be examined by a board of experts, a panel of experts, who will make a decision about whether surgery is appropriate, because I've spent most of the most meaningful part of my life as a transitioned male. I was a kid when I transitioned. I was in my 20s, but I was still a kid. I'm in my 50s now, so going back is kind of meaningless for me anyway. Here is where I am, and here is what I am. So going back isn't really, for me, it's not desirable, it's not necessary, it doesn't really mean anything. But undoing the artifice of what I've done, the most obvious aspect of that artifice is having fake breasts. That feels extremely necessary, and that's what I'm going to do. So to sort of accommodate people that aren't just changing within the binary, they've changed the guidelines. So this panel of experts will examine the details of my case, the psychiatric report that I paid for, and the most important part of the examination process is to discern whether the individual is stable in their decision and of sound mind. And I think it's a good thing, really, because they're trying not to make any more mistakes. But it's just a mess, basically, and so we would just I have to participate in the framework provided, but it doesn't feel good to be my age and not have the freedom to choose what I do, and to be at the mercy of other people's decisions. I've never really been good with authority, but it does not feel good to have this decision not being solely mine. I mean, when I made the decision to transition, I was in my 20s and started having surgery around 27. I had multiple surgeries, life-changing surgeries, all of them, half of which went completely wrong and had to be redone. But I was so gung-ho and so determined to escape myself, I didn't care, and I just said, do it again. So now I'm in a position where all I'm trying to do is just get my implants taken out and the loose flesh removed. But that's because it's gender-related surgery. It falls under the same guidelines, and so I'm not free to do that. I was free to have my jaw changed and my nose changed and my ears changed and have my forehead removed and ground down and re-cemented. That's fine. That's completely fine. But to have your breast removed, it because technically in the eyes of the medical profession, I'm a woman. I have to be considered in the same way as a woman who wants her healthy breast tissue removed. So it's a bit frustrating, really. But another thing that's also, I think I've only just today managed to get my head around, is that I will always have breasts. They can't remove them completely. So I envisaged them removing everything and just repositioning the nipple, and I would have a flat chest and just be what I am, which is a androgynous, fairly feminine man, and just to get on with my life as that. But that's not going to be the case, because my implants have been in for so long, well over 20 years, I think. Do you know what? It's so long ago, I can't even remember when I had everything done. They've been in a long time, and they've been under the muscle. So as I've aged, I've noticed my chest get more and more kind of the rib cage is more and more visible. So the muscles have stretched and thinned as my chest has dropped. So because the implants are under the muscle, and I didn't really have hardly any growth really, but before I had the implants done, the muscle would have stretched, and because of my size, I had quite large implants. They're 500cc, but they're in proportion with the rest of my body. But they're large implants, so the muscles have stretched a lot. So to have the surgery to remove the implants, first of all, they have to remove the implants, and then the capsule of scar tissue that forms around it, and then the loose flesh across the bottom of the breast, and then they'll reposition the nipples. But the muscles can't be removed, obviously. So they will withdraw slightly, but I'll always have bumps there, small breasts. So I've requested that he does everything he can to make them as close to my chest as possible, so they're high and tight, so my chest is as flat as possible. But I have to live with what I've done. So yeah, I think only today did I get to a point where I just thought, I'm all right. I mean, it's such a powerful transformation to come back to myself anyway, and it kind of doesn't really matter what I look like. Everything's familiar. I look at my face, and I've had this face longer than I had my masculine appearance. So, it feels familiar. It feels okay. I'll be fine. I think the most important thing, the most important aspect of detransition is the removal of delusion, the false belief that is a necessary part of the actual transition in the first place. You know, that takes so long, I think. I mean, you have shattering, catastrophic realizations as you come into clarity and you think, oh fuck, what have I done? When the window dressing of your own delusions is gone, and the brutality and the brutal reality of what speak personally, what I did to myself, resolves into sharp focus, and that's difficult enough, and it takes time to even allow yourself, to allow myself to actually feel that. Because when I transitioned, it's all about artifice. It's all about the illusion of what you're creating. And so everything looked woman-like. Even my fake vagina looked woman-like. And so outwardly, my appearance was very womanly when I first transitioned for quite a few years. Everything's kind of moved around and changed a bit over the last 10, 15 years. But when I was young, I really looked like a woman. And that's all that matters. And so even in relationships with men, I was sexually active. And even that is just, you're participating in something that's a farce, really. Because it's not even, it's just a hole in the front of your body. There's some sensation, but it's not a vagina. And so, it just felt ridiculous after a while when I was having sex. And, the guys that, do I need to say this? It just felt like a sham. It just felt like a sham. And like I was participating in a farce. So, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I wish I hadn't done it. But it's a journey. Would I be the person I am now if I hadn't done it? Would I have the insight? I like who I am now, and that's a new thing for me. That's a first. I like who I am now. And so because of the awfulness of my childhood and my young adulthood and everything that was associated with being male, there is still this feeling that I cleansed my body of all of that. And that I do feel kind of, that feeling is still very, very present, that I felt so wrong as a male. That was completely linked to trauma. It wasn't about me being male at all, it was about trauma. But those memories are so powerful, so vivid, and so prolonged all through my young life that the reality of that transformation and sort of cleansing my body of the male is still kind of something that I very, very much remember, and I still feel. So I feel comfortable as I am now, as a feminized male, but there is incongruity with the artifice of breasts that feels very, very wrong. So I think that one of the most unhealthy things of transition is this disgusting focus on self all the time. And it is disgusting. I became disgusted with my own bloody self-centeredness after a while. It was just awful. And so it doesn't really matter anymore because my attention is on other things. It's on relationships and healing and the world that I live in, and discovering myself there and in a relationship with God. and gradually coming to a state of forgiveness and understanding, and seeing myself as God sees me, knowing myself as God knows me, and accepting the fact that there's nothing wrong. There never was. I am loved. I always have been. And, that's the most important thing for me now, and to help other people. Which gets me to the next part of this video. So, I'll use a thumbnail actually. I've just remembered I took a photograph last night when I was standing on the beach at the shore of the loch near this cottage where I live. And that photograph was taken last night as I stood there. I felt intense emotion last night, and I stood at the beach, and then I walked into the water and a few meters and just stood on a rock, looking at the surface rippling around me and just watching the sun go down. And I started to cry. I was alone, and I started to cry, and I didn't really know why I was crying, and it took me a few minutes to get to a place of understanding. I thought, what? And then there was a deep sense of peace, and I thought to myself, what is this feeling, this new feeling? And it was self-worth. It was value. I feel that my life has value for the first time. And I thought about that. I thought about the week I've had, and reflected on that week, and identified where those feelings came from. So, people reach out to me. People email me, and sometimes we talk. And this week I spoke to a couple of people who reached out, and we've been in communication, and we talked. And I know that I helped those people. They told me I helped them. I saw that I'd helped them, and for the first time in my life I felt that I had value, because all I did was just be myself and share what I'm going through as honestly as I can. And in doing that, I brought something into the lives of others that was meaningful and helpful to them. And that is the healing, is coming back to ourselves, valuing ourselves. And all we have to do is have the courage to face the pain, face the trauma, penetrate our own protective illusions, and come back to ourselves. And just be who we are. And in doing so, that is the gift we bring into the world. And that is the healing path for those of us that have experienced repetitive, persistent trauma throughout childhood, where the caregiver is the source of that trauma. It's extremely damaging. Extremely damaging, because of course we blame ourselves. We must be wrong. It must be our fault. And in claiming that, in saying to ourselves, it's me, it's my fault, I'll apologise, I'll try and be something else, I'll try and be someone else. That's kind of the only way we can get control. That's the only way, really. And you may think that you're not doing it, but in the subtlest ways, that dynamic lives in the most casual, trivial relationship, and it's an apology for who we are. And what an awful way to live, apologising in every breath. That's not self-acceptance. That's not self-love. So the return is the return to who we really are, and the acceptance of ourselves as we are, who we are, right now, who we were as children. There was nothing wrong. It wasn't our fault. Of course it wasn't our fault. And then bringing that wounded, damaged, traumatized child that has just been sitting inside us, controlling everything, and its visceral responses to triggers and fear and threat. Like every challenge feels like a life or death threat. Bringing that child into maturity, and we all have to grow up at some time. And so that's what healing is. It's a path into maturity, I think. And, life is not all about play. And until we grow up, it tends to be that way. Play takes many forms. It's avoidance of responsibility. It's avoidance of engaging with life in a meaningful way. Looking for satisfaction and pleasure. That's play. Adult play. So, we need to mature at some point. And I don't think that we can love until we love ourselves. Until we mature. Until we accept ourselves. And, that was the hardest thing for me in dealing with trauma, is realising that I wouldn't have been traumatised if I hadn't wanted to love. If I hadn't tried to love, and I hadn't tried to reach out and connect and give love to my caregivers and say, here I am. And that love, that attempt to connect and give love was met with hostility. And so, that's the most painful thing, I think, is to realise that I still love. So, time for a poem. It's a bit dark in here. Okay. This poem is my new favourite, I think. And I've started to read other books by David White, and as I change, I can see more clearly into his words, and different poems appeal to me and touch me. So, this poem, I did try and make this video this morning, but I just started crying too much. I thought, God, I don't want to do that. I'm okay with being honest about my emotions, but sobbing uncontrollably on camera is not necessary. So this poem is from The Bell and the Blackbird, and it's twice blessed. And I'll just set this up. I have read this once before in the longest video I made, and it's one a couple of weeks ago where I just read all my favourite poems. So he was walking in Oxfordshire along a floodplain, and the floodplain was completely flat, and it was a sunny day, and as far as he could see, there was water reflecting the sky, meeting at the horizon. And he wrote this poem. To me, that really reminds me of a couple of times in my life where, you find yourself at a point, and it's like a point of equilibrium, where in the stillness of that moment, I recognised that moment was an attractor for everything that had been being drawn towards that point in time, from which everything else would emerge into the future. And that moment was pivotal in understanding. So I've had a few of those actually. And this is called Twice Blessed. So that I stopped there and looked into the waters, seeing not only my reflected face, but the great sky that framed my lonely figure. And after a moment I lifted my hands, and then my eyes, and I allowed myself to be astonished by the great everywhere calling to me like an old and unspoken invitation. made new by the sun and the spring and the cloud and the light, like something both calling to me and radiating from me, from where I stood. As if I could understand everything I had been given and everything ever taken from me. As if I could be everything I have ever learned and everything I could ever know. As if I knew both the way I had come and secretly the way underneath I was still promised to go. Brought together like this, with the unyielding ground and the symmetry of the moving sky caught in still waters. Something I have been, and someone I am just about to become. Something I am and will be forever. The sheer generosity of being loved, through loving, the miracle reflection of a twice blessed life. I'll read that again because I messed that up a little bit. But the reason I got upset this morning when I read this was because of this line here. As if I could understand everything I had been given and everything ever taken from me. I think that is where I find myself now. As I claim the gift of my life, I realise what was taken from me as a child. I realise that tragedy. But it's never too late to come back. It's never too late. Because in that realisation you realise everything you've been given and you still have. So, I'll read it again and then I'll say goodbye. Try not to mess it up this time. My eyes are very blurry because I've just woken up. Okay. Twice blessed. So that I stopped there and looked into the waters, seeing not only my reflected face but the great sky that framed my lonely figure. And after a moment I lifted my hands and then my eyes, and I allowed myself to be astonished by the great everywhere calling to me like an old and unspoken invitation, made new by the sun and the spring and the cloud and the light, like something both calling to me and radiating from where I stood, as if I could understand everything I had been given and everything ever taken from me, as if I could be everything I have ever learned and everything I could ever know, as if I knew both the way I had come and secretly the way underneath I was still promised to go, brought together like this, with the unyielding ground and the symmetry of the moving sky, caught in still waters. Someone I have been, and someone I am just about to become. Something I am and will be forever. The sheer generosity of being loved through loving. The miracle reflection of a twice blessed life. Maybe that's the most important part of healing, is being able to love without condition, without looking for something, but loving as a gift, not as a request. So we all have value. Of course we do. And I'm just realising the value of my own life. And it feels good. So I think I'm going to have another cup of tea. So thank you everyone to the watches my videos and comments and emails me. And I think that's it until the next one. Okay, bye.